Thank you, Deputy President. And I'm pleased to rise to speak on the Workplace Injury Rehabilitation and Compensation Amendment Provisional Payments Bill. And let me say from the outset that the Reason Party and we will support this legislation. I think it goes to the idea of early intervention on mental health issues. It goes hopefully to some of the notion that help is immediate, which I think actually goes a long way to helping prevent people from going down a more serious path of mental ill health or unwellness. As previous speakers have mentioned, this amends the Workplace Injury Rehabilitation and Compensation Act, as well as the Accident Compensation Act. And the effect of this is to provide workers who claim a mental injury access to provisional payments to cover the costs of their medical bills. This is incredibly sensible, and as I say, this is actually about early intervention. It also ensures that the employer notifies the authority of the claim within 3 business days. And I take the points that my colleague Mr. Bark made about the fact that this is being delayed. So this hopefully will give time for employers to prepare for any changes that they need to undertake in their systems. But we know that thousands of Victorians are injured at work every year, and that those claiming mental injury is on the rise. As previous speakers have said, we expect that to probably account for nearly 30% or 1/3 of WorkSafe claims by 2030. So being a lot more cognizant of the reality of mental injuries is what we need to do, and I think this bill actually catches up to the reality that we all know, the reality that mental ill health and mental workplace injuries have on our constituents, the stories that we receive in our offices and via our emails on a weekly, if not on a daily basis, because we know that physical and mental injuries are fundamentally different. It's not that difficult to recognise a physical injury, that someone's leg is broken or that they've cut themselves deeply. But sometimes it can take a lot of people to accurately diagnose a mental injury. And so the purpose of this bill is to take some of the pressure off when people do claim that mental injury. And I was recently given the example of an ICU emergency nurse who works part-time in order to look after her son. As with many of our workers in the care industry, in our health industry, she's working two jobs, looking after a young child. And unfortunately, last year, that working in the 2 jobs, looking after the child, a culmination of bullying in one of the hospitals that she was working in, it resulted in a stress and anxiety work cover claim. I mean, not surprisingly, when we are putting a lot of our healthcare workers under such extraordinary stress at the moment. Now, her prognosis was really good. Her GP was really helpful. But the cost of that psychology treatment that she needed, or that was recommended to her, was too much for her to cover. She wasn't working. She had a young child to be looking after. Now, her case eventually was actually rejected, but had she been able to get that access to that help at that point, at that acute point where she couldn't cope with work, she would have been able to get back to work a lot quicker. And I think that's what this bill does. So when people talk about the costs of it, I actually think about the savings that this actually will result in. Now, certainly we saw that, the Police Association that was part of the pilot on this, and I think one of the most poignant statements that I saw was that it meant that people were believed. And when you have got a mental health injury, to have someone say, I believe you, and these provisional payments go towards that I believe you, and that will assist you in providing treatment that's not delayed. And again, when someone actually is able to say that they have got a mental health injury and get immediate help, that will save us millions in the long run. That will save us having to deal with the acute aspects of mental health that would quite often be the end result when someone does not get help early. This will actually save lives, and it certainly will help people get back to work. I certainly think that the costs of this will be offset. I think it's in line with what the community expects, with our growing understanding of mental ill health, of mental health injuries in the workplace. And on those short comments, I'll commend the bill to the House.